Which celebrity would it break your heart to discover is secretly an asshole? Tom Hanks. Terry Crews. I used to work at a restaurant and he would come in from time to time with his family. Always polite. He even took a picture with me once. Super easygoing and made sure to quiet his kids down so I could give my usual spiel of this dessert is super amazing, you should definitely try it. Etc. Edit. Since people are asking. Here ya go. http. imgur. v2f. Bob Ross. He received roughly 200 fan letters a day. And read every single one of them. When someone who regularly wrote to him suddenly stopped, he would call them to make sure they were okay. Hugh Jackman. That man is so wholesome. There's a video of him doing some Wolverine scenes and in one of them he's snarling and growling and bumps into the cameraman and shifts right into. Oh my goodness. I'm so sorry. Are you alright, mate? Double quote. MR. Rogers. I went to church with MR. Rogers. He was nowhere near an asshole. I gave him a hug every Sunday. And he was always so cool. He played the piano for me too. I was like 8 and will never forget those times of my life. Just came here to say that even the nicest of people still have bad days. So don't take one interaction with the paparazzi or one bad interview as them being an asshole. Sheila Bioff yelled at me over the phone for a takeout order because the DJ at my restaurant was loud and I had to ask him to repeat a bunch. It was my first order too. He said something like it was the worst phone conversation he'd ever had, but when he came in he acknowledged it was loud. Apologized several times. And tipped me 30%, so not too bad. Since someone said Dwayne Johnson already, my vote is for Bryan Cranston. My dad ran into him in the early 2000s on a business trip in a movie theater. Got to shake his hand and was really friendly. Said he really appreciated that my dad liked Malcolm in the Middle so much. Dolly Parton. If you read her story and watch her in interviews, she just seems like such a genuinely nice lady. I've worked with Dolly Parton a couple times on video shoots. She is genuinely the sweetest person you'd ever meet. As an audio guy, putting a mic on a female requires doing things that would normally be a little uncomfortable. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't a little nervous about putting a lav on her. First day she told me get in there son. They won't bite. No better way to break the ice than that. Steve Buscemi. Seems like a real cool dude. We all know him as the famous 9/11 volunteer firefighter. But did you know Buscemi actually has a distinguished career as an actor? Starring in films such as The Big Lebowski and Pulp Fiction? Julie Andrews. I grew up on The Sound of Music and Mary Poppins and I can't imagine her not being graceful and honest. I have a friend who's worked with her on The Princess Diaries and says she's the sweetest woman alive but can curse like a sailor. Keanu Reeves. He is the most humble actor I have seen in my lifetime, especially after the suffering he went through. Grew up poor. Father left the family when he was 3. He has dyslexia and had to attend 4 different high school. When he was 23 his best friend died of drug overdose. His child was born stillborn which destroyed his marriage. Then his poor wife died in a car accident 18 months later. Even after all that suffering he still remains kind and humble. He donated most of his salary from Matrix to production workers. And the guy still travels by subway. If he ended up being an asshole, it will break my heart. Charlie Day. I went to a screening of Fist Fight that was supposed to just have a short introduction by Charlie Day. When the movie's audio wasn't working he came back into the theater. Sang Damon. Signed autographs. Answered questions. And took a picture with practically every single person in the theater. If that guy is an asshole, he does a great job hiding it. John Cena. Seriously. Even without all the great Make-A-Wish stuff he does, he has such a sweet face. Like, he's jacked but his face says I still go eat home cooked meals at my grandma's house every Sunday cause I'm a good boy. Donald Glover. He's the kind of person I want to be. Endlessly working on his passion. Whether it's television, film, or music, he just goes for it. Dave Grohl or Danny DeVito, I haven't heard much about him, but what I've heard hasn't been bad. Edit. Thank you for the gold and all the replies. These stories are great. John Krasinski or Jenna Fischer. Or really anybody from The Office. I've been binge watching that show and I would hate it if any of them actually ended up being jerks. Nathan Fillion. He's coming to our local convention this year and I'm trying my darndest to get an autograph pass. It would kill me if he wasn't a nice guy. Although, I'm sure conventions can be super overwhelming. So I would totally understand. That being said, I met Cary Elwes at the convention last year and he was the sweetest person ever. I might have fallen even more in love with him than I already was. John Goodman. If John is an asshole in real life, I don't want to know. He reminds me so much of my late father. I just love everything he is in. I watched him as a child in Roseanne and now as an adult cherish those reruns because he is just as lovable as Dan Connor as I remember my dad being for me as a kid. Plus he was scary AF in Cloverfield, like damn. Tom Hardy. He seems like a good guy. Apparently on the set of Mad Max he was so intense and creepy and scary that Charlize Theron ordered that he be kept the hell away from her when they weren't filming a scene. They're friends now, so he was probably just staying in character the whole time. Emma Watson. If anybody on here has the right to be an asshole, it's her. 90% of her fans are just douchey guys who are following the bandwagon that she's the most attractive thing since sliced bread. Yes, sliced bread is attractive, but having a literal countdown to when she was 18 so millions of guys weren't pedophiles anymore was really disgusting, to be honest. Adam Savage. I follow Adam on Facebook. He's posted stuff from fans or shared fans stuff. I can't imagine him being an asshole when he gives fans credit for their own stuff. He also hangs out with Alton Brown. And I can't imagine either of them being even rude. For those curious, Tommy Lee Jones is an asshole. On the set of US Marshals, a production assistant complimented him on the scent of the cigar he was smoking and he replied with "fuck you." Source: my dad, a theatrical teamster. Jack Black. Jack is a really cool dude. Ran into him and his son at the California Adventure Park a few years back on Halloween. The park was basically empty. My friend and I got separated from the rest of our group going into a ride. And not recognizing him at first, we asked if we could jump in front of them. Was super cool about it. Let us by. And then I'm like, holy shit. That's Jack Black. I was totally starstruck, so the only thing I could think of asking him was if Kung Fu Panda 3 was going to happen or not. It hadn't been announced yet. And I love those movies. And he looks around all suspiciously and whispers to me, "Yeah dude. But don't tell anyone." Double quote. Stanley Tucci. Finally. One I can confirm. My first job in production was as a PA on an indie he was shooting in Brooklyn. My job was to drive him from his home, 2 hours north of Nick, assist him on set, and drive him back home. I was so nervous that first day. In my personal car, driving Stanley Tucci. He was one of the nicest people I've ever met. I continued this job, 5+ hours alone in a car with Stanley, for over a month. He would speak very candidly with me about his personal life and beliefs. He's unbelievably intelligent and educated, but always asked my opinions and liked to hold conversations rather than listen to himself talk. He remembered things I told him about my family and personal beliefs. He was pretty much the opposite of every celebrity I'd imagined and, honestly, worked with since. He'd ask me to do him personal favors like take his fiancée places, her sister's house, i.e. Emily Blunt's house, and drop him off at his buddy's house, Steve Buscemi. I would never mind. And he'd occasionally repay the favor by gifting me wine. It was one of the best jobs I'd ever had. And I'll always remember a lot of the things he taught me and stories he told. Gary Oldman. I'm surprised no one has mentioned him yet. He seems like an awesome dude to hang with and I'd be bummed if I found out otherwise. No proof, but when I lived in LA had a buddy whose dad worked on the set and was an emergency extra for The Professional and said that Gary Oldman was legit the most stereotypical British gentleman you'll ever meet, all the way down to ridiculous English dad jokes. Pinky up on the teacup and greeted everyone by sir and madam. Alan Rickman. But he wasn't. I wish people would see this bad comment their experiences. Someone on here has to have one. Him and Robin Williams are the only celebrities that I cried over when he died. I still can't believe he is gone. Jeff Goldblum. If he is an asshole, please let me know now. Elijah Wood. My sister actually met him once while she was on her way to work. They casually chatted and Elijah offered to buy her coffee. She declined because she was running late. Edit. Proof. This post should be called Name a Celebrity and then the first commenter talks about meeting them. Steve Carell. My mom was driving around one day about a year ago going to yard sales in a super rich town nearby. She got to a large house thinking that it was where the yard sale was happening but saw nothing outside, so she went to the front door and knocked to ask what was going on. Well, it turns out Steve came to the door slightly confused and my mom asked him if they were having a sale. He laughed with her and pointed her down the road to the correct address and was super cool about the mix-up. My mom didn't realize until afterwards that it was him when she explained the debacle to his neighbors having the yard sale, and she has been a fan since well before this. They also had nothing but great things to say about him. Gordon Ramsay. I've looked up to 3 people in my life. But Steve Owen's dead. Bill Nye the Science Guy is an asshole. Gordon Ramsay is all I have left. Billy Joel. From everywhere I've seen, he is a fantastic humble guy, but he is basically my idol. And the reason I started playing piano. If I find out he is an asshole, I will be sad. I met him at a meet and greet and started babbling about how I had been a fan for 40 years, and I said something doofy like thank you for sharing your gift with us, and he said thank you, what a nice thing for you to say. So even though it was just a couple minutes, he was nice to me. Chance the Rapper. He just seems like a genuinely nice guy. Yes, I came here to say this. He's donated so much to Chicago public schools. I'm from Chicago, so this one hits home. And he refuses to sign with anybody cause he wants to prove you can be successful on your own, and he's preaching all this stuff about love. He's like my role model. The main cast of Always Sunny. I know they're assholes in the show. But I'd still be disappointed if they were in real life too. There's a reason Glenn Howerton specifically made sure his character's name was unlike his own. Elements of Charlie Day's personality and Rob McElhenney's spelling, personality are present in their characters. I like. But Dennis is specifically unlike Glenn because Dennis is just that awful. Lin-Manuel Miranda. He's one of the few celebs I follow on social media. He's just so damn positive. I'd be crushed if he turned out to be a DCK in any significant way. Janelle Monáe. I love her music with a passion, and in interviews she seems so down to earth and full of real insight when it comes to social and political issues in the United States and around the world. And she seems like a huge music nerd with eclectic tastes. It would break my heart if it turned out that this was somehow fake. Yuzo Aduba. I love Orange Is the New Black. And watching the interviews. She seems so humble and down to earth. Would be extremely disappointed if she were to be a giant asshole. Queen Elizabeth LeMayo. I'd kind of love it if she got all up in someone's face because they stepped on her corgi or something. Tommy Wiseau. I'm not sure he has the mental capacity to be an efficient asshole. Anna Kendrick. Real celebrity. Alan Alda. I've watched MASH for years. Read his autobiography. It would be a real surprise at this point. Celebrity. Youtube Markiplier. I've been watching him since between 75,000 and 100,000 subs. Which was in February. Though I first signed up for YouTube that October. Conan O'Brien. Met many people who interned with him and said it was the best job they ever had. He apparently is a real prankster and fucks with his interns a lot beyond the occasional show segment. But it's always in good fun. My cousin interned with him and said the exact same thing. She said Andy is also a super nice guy. Tom Hiddleston. I'm positive he's the sweetest man in the world. I remember reading somewhere when he was dating Taylor Swift that all these little T Swift fans who had no idea who he was because they hadn't seen his movies, completely different fandoms, were making claims that he was some nobody who was dating her to get famous and calling him an asshole. It was ridiculous. Bill Nye. My friend lived in his neighborhood and about 8 years ago he saw Bill mowing his lawn. He asked for an autograph and was sternly shut down. I would understand not wanting to be bothered at his own home, but it would be a tragedy if this happens other places as well because he's one of my idols. Craig Ferguson. He seems like a very nice and sincere person. When he hosted the Late Late Show, there was never anything flashy or over the top. He spoke directly to the camera, which made it feel like he was talking to you. There was no band, laugh track, or music. It was just him and some puppets and then a robot skeleton. But still, he seemed genuine. Jared Padalecki or Jensen Ackles. I know Supernatural is its own cliche now, but I started watching when I was 12 and lonely. I've never even met them, but I've been watching since season 1 and I just keep hoping they are nice people. Jimmy Fallon. He is such a gracious host and seems genuinely invested in putting everyone he speaks with at ease. I'd be sad if it was an act. Neil Armstrong. Sadly, the guy seemed to have just the opposite of the life he wanted. Just a Midwestern guy from Ohio who wanted to fly planes, live out his days happy, and instead became literally one of the most famous humans to ever live. I can't blame the guy for retreating from the public eye. I don't know if he counts as a full celebrity, but Neil Gaiman. I met him at a book signing several years ago. He remembered my name from my Q&A card that he read on stage, in which I told him that both mine and my companion's cars broke down on the way to see him, and he asked if we were going to make it home okay with the kindest and most genuine concern in his voice. It was 2 AM and the man had been signing books non-stop for 6 hours. He insisted on always signing every attendee's books. I even saw later on Instagram that he had to ice his right hand afterwards. And yet he still stopped for a second to express compassion. They say never to meet your heroes, but I'm so happy I met mine. Ryan Gosling. Every time I've ever seen him in an interview or some other context where he's not acting, he comes off as a great guy. There was the time he literally broke up a fight in the streets of Nick in that heartfelt speech he gave about his lady at the Golden Globes. Swoon, I'd be crushed if he were an asshole. If anyone's ever worried about one, see if they have a Graham Norton show appearance. It is impossible to be an asshole on that show. Many of my favorite celebrities are shown to be hilarious, fun-loving people even when faced with the campiest man ever. I don't know why that format hasn't caught on in the US. Ed Sheeran. He's not. I love telling this story. He was the opening act for Snow Patrol, just him, some pedals, and his guitar, and there were like 100 seats filled in the 5,000 seat house when he came on. He was probably the best opening act I've ever seen. Nobody expected any of it, and when he came to the autograph signing area he was so incredibly humble and friendly to people who were wowed by his performance. I'm pretty sure he deserves every bit of his fame and fortune. Key and Peele. I recently worked an event where Jordan Peele was the host and he was the nicest guy. Very gracious, down to earth, and genuinely nice. It was a long day for all of us, but he was consistently in a good mood and even took a photo with me at the end of the night. So, not an asshole. Aren't we all assholes sometimes? Just because we've seen one headline or tweet we automatically assume they're a bad person for being an asshole once? Seems kinda stupid to me. Drew Brees. That guy literally comes off as one of the nicest people ever. Once, he bought everyone at a Saints practice a snow cone on an extremely hot day. Norman Reedus. He always looks so happy and excited to see his fans. It would suck to discover he is a douchebag. Johnny Depp, because he is so talented and has so many fans. Hugh Jackman, because well he's Hugh Jackman. Ryan Reynolds and Chris Pratt, they are too funny and adorable. Elon Musk seems like a really cool dude. Much as I like and respect the guy, he's a verified asshole. Not in the I get off on being a DCK to people way. More so in the I don't have time for this or you sort of way. Which is more than fair. Damn, I would be the same way if I had to make a rocket to get back home. Patrick Stewart. Between Xavier and Picard he must get a lot of fanboys, but especially after those dog videos he just seems like a real nice guy. Will Ferrell. I remember he was going to be a guest on a talk show along with Justin Bieber and he tweeted something about trying not to punch him in his midget face. I don't think that makes him an asshole. It makes him human with superhuman restraint. Any musician I enjoy. I actually have a serious phobia when I go to concerts that I will somehow piss off the musicians and they'll tell me to leave the concert and stop listening to them. Never happened so far, but some musicians were much nicer to the crowd than others. I found out last night that Mark Wahlberg apparently has a dark past and that made me really sad. One of my favorite actors.